5 John Carpenter movies. Hello and welcome to this week's video. This week I want to give my thanks to another sci-fi guy for inspiring this video with one of his questions on the recent Q&A. He asked me what I thought of a particular John Carpenter movie. And I came up with the idea, I think, well, why don't we do a top 5 John Carpenter movies? Because he's one of my favourite directors, done many of my favourite movies. Let's have a look at the top 5. Personal opinion, of course. 5. Now, this might be a bit of a controversial one. Memoirs of an Invisible Man. This is not a typical Carpenter movie. It's obviously not a horror movie. This is more of a fantasy adventure with touches of humour. It's Chevy Chase in the early 90s, but it's not a Chevy Chase comedy as such. It's really, I mean, he has some amusing moments and some witty lines, but he plays it fairly straight. This is essentially an adventure movie, a fantasy sci-fi adventure, rather than a comedy or a spoof or anything like that. And he plays it very well. Sam Neill is in it. He's a good bad guy. Daryl Hannah's in it, being very pretty. This is a fun movie. I know that it's not a standard Carpenter movie, and I'm sure some Carpenter fans will be throwing stones at me for the ones that I've left out in a top 5, but I really like this movie. I think it's very underrated. So there. 4. They Live. Now, again, this is more in Carpenter's wheelhouse, though it's more kind of, again, sci-fi satire, despite somehow horror elements. But the most amazing thing about They Live is how relevant it remains today with its themes of consumerism, brainwashing via the media, and, our leaders largely being aliens who are just using us as cattle. Yeah, sounds about right, doesn't it? Especially after the last 5 years. They Live is great fun. It's got one of the most ludicrously protracted fight scenes in living memory, which South Park did an amazingly accurate parody of. I'm not sure the episode title. The one where Timmy and Jimmy first meet and end up having a fight. It's hilariously accurately spoofs the fight in this movie. Yeah, I really like They Live. It's very clever. It's very unsettling, and it's very funny and very pointed. And as I said, still very relevant to this day. 3. Now this is where you get to the point of the real meat. The real meat and the kind of the horror that Carpenter is most well known for. So number 3 for me, The Fog. I've always liked The Fog. I can't remember exactly when I first saw it. A long time ago. I'm not sure whether I saw it as a kid or whether it was a teenager. I do remember watching it as a teenager, like on BBC 2 or something in the late 80s. But whether I saw it earlier than that, I'm not entirely sure. But I really like The Fog. It's a ghost story. It's a small town ghost story. Hidden dark secrets from the town's past. Got a great cast. Jamie Lee Curtis. Janet Leigh's in it. Tom Atkins. I nearly forgot his name then. I really like The Fog. It's very creepy, very well directed, very atmospheric. I have it on Blu-ray. Well, I've got all of these on Blu-ray, so what am I talking about? Yeah, The Fog is a classic in my book. 2. The Thing. Now, controversially, I never used to be that big of a fan of The Thing. I mean, I never disliked it, but the kind of the veneration that many fans kind of held it in did kind of puzzle me a little. But over the years, and every single time I've watched it, and I've kept being drawn back to it, I kind of, started to get it, and it's now one of my absolute favourite movies and my second favourite Carpenter movie. It's great base under siege horror. Again, directed with Carpenter's typical flair and atmosphere. Again, a wonderful cast led by Kurt Russell. Paranoid, gripping, gross. For most other directors, I would say The Thing would be the number 1. And I know some fans think that it is. However, for me, number one shouldn't be any surprise. For me, my number one favourite Carpenter movie is the original Halloween. I mean, it's pretty much probably my number two favourite horror movie of all time, beaten only by the original Black Christmas. Halloween is sublime. I just love this movie. I love everything about it. The atmosphere is fantastic. The music is fantastic. It made Jamie Lee Curtis a star. It made Michael Myers a star. It's just a perennial, timeless classic, and one of the absolute best movies of the 70s. I love Halloween, and it's my favourite John Carpenter movie. So there you go, my top 5 favourite John Carpenter movies. List yours below. Comment.